Welcome to the Enneagram 2.0 podcast. I'm Beatrice Chestnut.
And I'm Uranio Paes.
And today we're talking about the Enneagram types and what each type finds really, really good, really desirable.
Yeah, so last episode we called it the Unforgivables. Now we're calling this one the Desirables.
The extremely desirables.
Meaning that if you do these things with someone in your life who's of that type, you will get bonus points, right, B?
Right. They will really like it. So if you're trying to ingratiate yourself with someone of a particular type, you might try doing some of these things that we're going to describe.
So especially useful podcast.
Yes, very practical.
Yeah, and it's important to remember that it's on us to adapt our communication to people of each type.
Yes.
It's a commitment that the sender of the message needs to have, and not the receiver. We need to make sure that the person understands us, but also, why not saying a few things that will make the relationship easier. We won't push the person's buttons and so forth.
Right.
Yeah. So should we start?
Yes.
And always our sequence. We start with eights.
We start with eights.
Do you start or should I start?
I think you should start.
So the desirables with eights. Great. So first thing, be direct and make sure that you say what you think and you don't come with indirect communication, or that you don't hide your truth or the information you have or your opinions. Second desirable comes right after this. Make sure that you don't react against the eight when the eight starts complaining of what you have just said in a direct and sincere way. The first reaction an eight has is just to be, just need to listen to it and don't go complain, or don't assume that will be the definite answer the eight will have. So what is desirable here is that you don't go cry in the corner of the room in here. So be strong and hang in there. Being okay with the first reaction the eight has. Another thing is to do things for the eight before the eight thinks that you're not taking the lead. Because there is something that the eights keep looking for, which is signs or evidence that you're not doing your job and you're not exercising your leadership the way you should be. So it's desirable if you have initiative, if you are proactive, and if you do things before they ask you to. Also, it's super desirable if you don't judge them and their intentions. They say this a lot. Like, you can tell me very easily that what I said had a bad effect. You can tell me that I wasn't sensitive or I didn't see my impact on others. But don't say to me that I had bad intentions by doing that. So it's actually desirable to just understand that the eight is a bit more like, let me say, clueless and not a bad person. So not being judged is important. And not being someone weak on one hand, but also not being someone that's too harsh with them just because they look like they don't absorb the impact well. And that's not completely true. Underneath the defense mechanism of denial, there is a very sensitive person always for an eight. But I'd say that one of the biggest desirables for an eight is people who come across with some intensity. People who are too slow or too calm, or people who don't speak their truth, or people who don't show passion are not very attractive for eights. Some eights say, "Oh, I benefit from people like that because I need that myself. But it's still hard for them if they feel that the other person lacks energy. So a big desirable is passionate people. What
Right.
about you? What would you add?
Yeah, some of this is building on what you said. I think that around being direct, speak in bullet points, get right to the point, especially in a work setting. If you have a request of the eight, just put it up front. Don't bury it behind a lot of details or fluff. Another thing is be authentic, tell the truth, be transparent. Don't play games. Don't put on a false front. Don't sort of hedge or tell a story that doesn't get straight to the point. Another thing is be willing to engage in conflict if it arises, if it's necessary to move things forward, to get clarity in a relationship, to make things happen, and stand your ground in conflict. Remember, eights trust people more who are willing to say what they really think, even if it leads to conflict. And recognize that if the eight expresses anger, that it'll be over after it's expressed. And the main thing may be to just hear them out and listen to the message, and don't defend too much against anger, because anger may not be your thing. Recognize that for them, anger is energy. So be accepting when it comes to the way they express themselves, even if it's not your way.
Or controversy.
Right. Yeah. Be open to mixing things up a little bit. Also, recognize their generosity. Eights usually have really big hearts, and they show caring in a lot of the things they do, which might look like being assertive or being direct or even being aggressive. They may do that in the name of showing that they care. So be open to seeing the eight's love language of caring and their big heartedness when they're doing things, even if, again, that may not be the way you express caring. Recognize that they're often coming from their heart, even when they may do something that looks controlling or a bit overbearing. Sometimes they're just trying to make something happen as an act of generosity.
Okay. Nines.
Nines.
So it's a big, big, big plus for nines if you ask questions, if you don't impose things onto them.
Yes.
If you hear them out, even though they take some time to start talking, or even though they may take time to finish talking, and if you don't rush them, if you don't apply pressure, if you are very polite, also not only with them but with others,
Right.
and if you really care about them, they know if you care or not. And if you don't forget them or leave them out, also they will be especially grateful if you say your opinion and then ask, but what do you think? I want to hear your point of view. And it's okay if you want to think more, if you want to elaborate, or ask the nine twice if they think they're really happy with a course of action or a choice that is being made together. I think also it's a super, super desirable for nines that people add to the harmony in the environment and not create, a storm out of nothing. And add to a calmer, a peace of mind, and something that goes smoothly. Because nines find it really hard to cope with lack of harmony, although they don't show it very easily to others. What else, Lee?
Right. Yeah. Some of what I was thinking of saying is similar to what you're saying. I might say it slightly differently, but it's the same. And I really want to emphasize what you said about ask questions, show interest, right? Ask questions and what the nine thinks, what they want. Even if they don't provide an answer, make that okay. communicate that you'll be interested in knowing whenever they figure it out or whenever they want to say it. An ongoing open invitation and show of interest to hearing what the nine thinks, what they want, which direction they want to go. Even if the answer in the moment is I don't know, just don't let that be the end of the story. Just say, okay, well, if you know any, if something occurs to you, let me know. I'm very interested and I care a lot about what you think and what you want. I would say be patient. Don't impose a pace on them that's your pace. They tend to have a slower pace. Make that okay. Sort of learn from them to go with the flow. Allow them to go with the flow. Allow them to be easygoing. And so don't pressure, don't push, especially if it's really not necessary. And the way I put it is something you also said is don't create unnecessary conflict, right? Don't add tension into relationships or in the environment if it's not really necessary. You know who you are. Some of you I know probably can't help but doing that sometimes because that's your type. But recognize, like, take that extra step to really ask yourself, do you really need to complain about that? Do you really need to stir things up that really don't need to be stirred up? Now, of course, nines need to learn to tolerate conflict, but there are a lot of conflicts and tension, sources of tension that may not need to be there. And so you can really help the nine if you, are a peacemaker like they are, or if you allow things to be peaceful, if you allow for no disruptions in the force.
Yeah, I think this podcast talks about how to make things easier for the other person.
Right.
From a perspective of personality itself, and not evolution much.
Right.
But that opens up territory for the person to want to evolve later.
Right. I think especially because if you can show the other person that you're willing to adjust or adapt or meet them part way, and sometimes that can be what this is. That's something that the inner work that you're doing, and often that leads to greater understanding on the other side, and it also it helps get out of typical power struggles that types can get in with each other.
Exactly. And just one last thing I thought about nines. Treat other people fairly and well.
Yes.
Because they're especially attentive to how you deal with others in life. And I really mean everybody else, like the waiter at the restaurant. And make sure that you notice those people, that you're polite, as we said before, but also that you include them, and that you dedicate attention to each and all of them.
Right. And also encourage them to say no, like take no for an answer. Be sensitive when they're making boundaries in ways that may be almost imperceptible, like they may be saying no in a quiet way. Listen for that and allow that to be okay.
And normalize the fact that they not always know what needs to happen.
They don't always know. Yeah.
So ones. Well, extremely desirable is congruence, that you walk your talk, that you commit and you do what you say you're going to do, that you don't take too long to do it. Also, that you listen up to when they say something is not going well or something needs to change, and that you do your part, that you don't leave all the load with them, and that you share a little bit of the burdens of life. Also, it's especially positive for ones if you don't break all the rules all the time. If you follow a little bit of the conventions, the rules, and things that they expect you to do. And if you don't, they will feel like they do it all themselves. Right? And also, do not criticize ones. because when you do, they will criticize themselves much more right next. And chances are that there is nothing that you will tell a one as a criticism that they haven't criticized themselves for before. And it's tricky because sometimes just giving feedback is felt by ones as a criticism. So this is very tricky because when you give a one feedback, it's useful if you can position that as an improvement opportunity. And but be very gentle, and at the same time you need to be direct, you need to be clear, and not take too long in everything that's happening, and be okay with some irritability, nervousness that may exist with ones, and at the same time offer the resource for them to relax or to go to the other side, like having leisure, taking them out of that spiral movement in which they get caught very often, or of always improving things and going for duty, not what they want to do. So be the one taking them out of there and bring up humor to the situation, because they really appreciate this when you're doing all the other parts.
Right. Right. Yeah, I want to emphasize what you said about be held accountable. If you make a mistake, own it, say it, say you'll do it differently next time. Be responsible, be ethical, be reliable, do what you say you're going to do, similar to the way they are. Here's something I think that's really good: do it their way, right? Appreciate their right way of doing it. Allow them to be right. Tell them how right their way is, and do it that way. Appreciate it when they're right, and highlight that, and thank them for that. Also, really honor their good intentions, right? Even if maybe they did something you didn't like, notice that there may have been a good intention behind it, and appreciate that about them. Another thing is, here's a good one: appreciate what's perfect. Ones really appreciate perfection. Now, it doesn't happen very often or all the time, but when it does happen, and it can be something like nature, the way nature is inherently perfect, allow yourself to really appreciate when something goes just right, or when something turns out perfectly, or even when a walk in nature, appreciating the beauty of the breeze, or just all the beautiful things that ones, I think, have a special ability to point out or to appreciate. And then I would say point out what's good about them. And, even with humor or with appreciation, help them take in the good stuff, and appreciate all the things they do that they may do out of a desire to avoid self criticism, but that are good all the same. So appreciate the good things they do, how hard they work, how hard they try. Be vocal and active about expressing that appreciation.
Fantastic. So let's move on to the heart types and
Okay.
start with your type, type 2.
Okay.
Do you want to start, or do you want to see if I'm
I,
pleasing you
I
with
want to see what
desirable?
you say first,
Oh
actually.
my.
This will be very
Oh.
interesting.
So teach me as I speak, and let me know if I'm wrong in anything.
Okay, and this will be something that you might want to remember for
Oh
later.
yes, I need to take notes. Yeah. Okay, so I think a big desirable for a choose is to engage in more personal conversation and talk about the relationship and invest in the relationship in different ways that will make it healthy, pleasant, and good. And then own your parts when needed, when something's happening, because that makes it easier for the two to do the same next. It's not easy for the two to initiate this a discussion of a problem, owning their parts. Another desirable is to express that you like them. But it needs to be often. It can't be just saying once and think, well, I've said that already. It needs to
Mm-hmm.
be regularly. Another thing is to always bring the human dimension to everything that's being done
Mm-hmm.
with the two in your life, but also with other people. Like they are always looking for relationships and so forth. So I'll give an example. Imagine you're traveling with a Jew and you want to see places. Make sure that you consider that the Jew wants to know people. If you're not willing to, maybe that's what they want, and sometimes just engage in doing that and being with you while you travel. Like I'm saying this because as a traveler I want to see places and I'm more concentrated on facts and so on, but for a Jew it's different. Another thing to remember that is super super desirable for Jews is to do things for them before they ask
Mm-hmm.
and help in a spontaneous way,
Mm-hmm.
offering your help, but without waiting for the Jew to ask. Of course, Jews that grow need to learn how to ask. So even in our relationship here, I tease you saying, "Do you need my help? Do you need my help?" Because I want you to say. But that's because we help one another grow. But it's more, if I want you to just feel good, feel okay, I may just go and do something for you, or
Mm-hmm.
maybe I need to do that more.
I was just going to say, I'm remembering I need to add something to the undesirables. You always force me to ask for
Oh,
help and say
come
the
on.
words instead of just
I've
doing
been
it.
trying. I've been trying. This
Yeah.
is another desirable, saying that you're trying or
Mm.
showing that you're trying.
Yeah.
I see that this makes a huge difference for Jews.
Yeah.
And I could say more, but why don't you
Yeah.
either correct me or add to the list?
Yeah. 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 I think being personal, I think showing that you care in different ways. And that could be spending time together or saying, or coming up with the idea of, hey, let's do this together. And knowing that that's something that the two likes to do. Um, Expressing affection, expressing appreciation, really letting the two know that you appreciate their efforts, that you see them, that you understand them, that you hear them, and that you appreciate them for who they are. Not necessarily just for what they do, but for certain things that you see in them that you like about them, you know?
When you see it, say it.
When you see it, say it. And especially if you know the two well, things that they may not see that you see that you like about them. Showing that you really know them and you like who they are. I think that's really great. And spontaneous expressions of affection or desire to connect, like, hey, let's go get dinner tonight. Let's go to your favorite restaurant. Let's take a walk, or look, I brought you a gift. All of these ways of kind of showing affection, showing caring, showing thoughtfulness, that you thought of them, that you just know and appreciate and see who they are. Yeah.
Very good.
Like remembering things about,
About
because
the two,
about them and what they like
what they
and
said
what they said
before.
before.
Could be
And
from remembering the Jew's
right.
birthday to something, some preference.
Right,
Right.
right, right. And also what you said, like being kind and respectful to the people all around, or to the people that the two likes also.
Yeah.
That can also be good.
What about being positive and fun? Do you
Being
think that it's
positive
for
and
most
fun.
Jews?
Yes, I do. I do. Especially again, if it's a personal, like having fun together, or teasing them, or making a joke, that has some sort of element of that sort of appreciation, but in a light way.
Yeah.
I think that can be nice too.
Right. So threes. I think that some desirables are that you speed up a little bit in processes in life, that you don't take
Yes.
too long to talk,
Yeah.
that you're a bit more direct, and
Yeah.
at the same time appreciative of the
Mhm.
three's accomplishments and efforts,
Mhm.
and also that you cope with the faster pace,
Mhm.
that you remember to praise the successes in the three's life somehow.
Mhm. Mhm.
And again, we're talking about what makes those types more comfortable. And it's super important also to bring up later this dimension of relationships that we make it a little bit uncomfortable for them to grow. But it's important to know what they expect and do some of this.
And part of this is about getting along with them. I mean,
Yeah,
we're all still in personality.
yeah,
So it's about getting along well, creating a positive relationship, because I think
yeah.
sometimes that positive, good feeling connection does allow
Mhm.
for more inner growth. Like
Right,
if you're doing things that you know that person likes, it sometimes makes it easier for them to do things you like and for
right.
them to do things that are maybe a little more challenging because
Exactly.
things are going more easily.
Yeah, and back to
Back to
threes,
threes.
I think it's brilliant when people appreciate those 5 minutes that they manage to stop or to dedicate
Mm.
attention to them or to the
Hmm.
kids or
Yeah,
to something else, and not just demand that they do more
right.
or criticize. Another thing is to show love and be emotional, because although threes not always look emotional, they are emotional and they
Hmm.
are super
Right under
sensitive.
the surface. Yeah.
Yeah, and they want other people to be warm with them,
Yes.
and being warm then is important. And one last thing from my part for now, I think that it's a big bonus in a relationship with threes when you can just engage in positive conversations, talking about the future and how you both can get to a certain point, engaging in goals, and having this drive to
Mhm.
make things happen.
Yeah, exactly. I would say, like you said, in line with the idea of going at a fast pace or respecting their fast pace, don't waste their time. That's a big one.
Mhm.
Don't waste time. Um, do things together with them. They're very active. They like to do a lot, both in work, but also in life. So accompany them on the things they want to do. Even if it's running errands, it can be fun to do things together and kind of go with their agenda, align with their goals, support them in reaching their goals. Now, another thing is really recognize them for the good things they do. And
Yeah.
here's, I think, something that you can do with threes that can be both something that's sort of a desirable for threes, but also something that's sort of supportive of their growth is admire and appreciate and recognize them for their successes, for all how hard they work and the things they do and the successes that they've had. And if you're close to them, recognize them for who they really are as well,
Yeah.
right? So you can say, it's fantastic that you got that promotion. That is so exciting. Let's go celebrate.
Yeah.
And I think you got it because you really shared more of what was important to you, or you really were kind of working in light to further a value that you have that I really appreciate in you. Sort of recognize them, see them both for their image and the good things they do to cultivate that image, but also, and even more, for who they really are, for their true self, their real self. Mirror back all the good things you see about them that might go a little bit deeper, to both sort of let them know that you appreciate how hard they work and sort of from the personality point of view, but also who they are, the things they may not know that you see, or the things they may not be trying to advertise, but the things that you understand about them because you know them. And that will help them also express more of who they really are.
Great. So some desirables for force. Hear them out.
Yes.
So make sure that you pay attention to them. You don't hurry them in what they are saying or sharing, that you are okay when they are sharing their emotions, that they really don't need to make complete sense in the beginning.
Or from your point of view.
Yeah, and they can change emotions quickly, and that this is all important, and asking questions and being there for them. And then super desirable if by the end you ask, do you feel that I'm understanding you? And then also another thing that is a big desirable with force is that you speak in first person, and you also bring in your opinions, your thoughts, your feelings, your desires, and that you can also show passion for things. It's a little bit like for eights. Fours are not very happy when people look indifferent, and they need to show a little bit of passion, and they need also space to create, to do things differently, to be unique. So if you live with a four, give them wings when it comes to this. Also recognition, but I'd say it's a bit more like avoiding things that might make the four feel rejected. I think that's even more important than recognition for fours. And finally, I want to say, if you really want to help make a four happy, let them bring in a vision for something more grandiose for the future, or a vision for how things can be different. Engage with that, and never try to be only practical. Never try to be just basic. And engage in this kind of talk about what can be better and what can happen next.
Right. Yeah, I agree with all that. And I would add, yeah, hear them out and understand them, right? Like, show them that you have a strong intention to try to really understand them on their terms, right? So imagine if your sexual four friend or partner is really angry at you and complaining and being really mad, and you say, I really want to understand why you're mad. Tell me more. It will be so great for that person to, for once in their life, have someone who's really asking to hear and understand what they're angry about, and really seek to understand their experience, to really enter in, empathize with, understand, even if it's just what happened to them during the day, during their day, at the end of the day. Really, really let them know that you want to hear them out fully, that you want to understand them. And like Uranio said, recognize that they're the ones who decide whether or not you've understood them, and keep going until they feel fully understood by you. Because sometimes we want to skip ahead, or we want to just dismiss some emotions if they're, don't seem that relevant to us. But for a four, you have to really make sure they really want you to hear them fully, in terms of what they experienced, and be able to express that. So really, really make a lot of space for that, and keep asking, is there anything else? You think I understand it? Here, let me restate what I think you're saying. Did I have it right? Like, really go to those lengths, because the four will really appreciate it if you really, really get all of what they feel and think, and that you give them a lot of room to express that, and to show that you've really received it, and to respond. I think it's also good to respond with authenticity, right? You want to be truthful just like they are. If you have a disagreement, that's okay. But say why, and say how you feel. Because I think that will help them feel like you're kind of in it together, that you're connecting through through discussing what you think and feel and what your experience is. So allow for that kind of depth of connection is what they'll really like. Like, share your deep feelings and seek to understand their deep feelings. Now, if deep feelings aren't your thing, that's okay, and you can say that. That's the beauty with fours, is if you're authentic and transparent and saying the truth, they'll appreciate you for that, even if you aren't as emotional as they are, if you aren't as that comfortable with emotions. You can say that, but at least show them that you're making an effort to try, given your limitations.
Yeah. Just a compliment that has all to
Yeah.
do with this.
Yeah.
Chances are that the four has probably grown up being invalidated or feeling invalidated in
Yeah.
different ways.
Right.
So try. It will be a big bonus for them if you are not another person
Mm,
who says that they are too dramatic, too
right.
emotional, that they they are not seeing reality as they should, or whatever you say that is more of the same they've been hearing.
Show them that you believe emotions are important, and if you don't, then maybe try to act as if you do for a while and see if maybe you can move in that direction. Also, appreciate them for their depth of feeling, and that can look like appreciating their idealistic visions about things, whether it's about the past or the future. Understand and appreciate them no matter what they're feeling. If it's longing for something, if it's feeling regret for something, there's something that you can always appreciate if you're open to recognizing that really all emotions are valid if someone's feeling them, right? And fours get that. So accept their emotions. See them as valid. It's because emotions aren't like a logical argument that's either right or wrong. Emotions are just are. And if you validate the four in their emotion and you empathize and you show them that you get it, it's going to be really a big gift to them, because often many people in their lives haven't done that for them. Now, I will also say it's really good to hear out the four, understand how they're feeling. And I think you can also, and here's where you might get a little bit of a angle in there supporting the four's growth, also appreciate things about them they may not be seeing.
Hmm.
Right? So if there's something positive, especially in the here and now moment, or about themselves that they're not seeing or that they're devaluing, I think it's nice to put up a positive mirror to say, "Yeah, I hear how you feel. I hear that you're disappointed or you're discontent or you're sad because of this or that, and here's how I'm experiencing you right now. I'm experiencing you as all these positive things." And that's my experience. And the beauty of that is they recognize that everyone's entitled to their experience. And if you're experiencing them in a positive way and you share that, they're going to really, really like that, because fours don't need you to feel exactly the way they feel, right? So if you're feeling differently, you can share your emotions and they're open to that. But it'll be a big gift to them if you also highlight what you see as positive that they may not be seeing, just because their habit is to look more about what's missing or at a distance. And so if you also appreciate what's special about them, that can also be something, a bonus.
Hmm. Head types,
Head
starting
types.
then with fives.
Fives. Okay, fives. Maybe you should start.
Okay, so I won't do the same of seeing if
Well,
you.
I
Yeah,
can if you
okay,
want.
I can start.
Okay.
So fives first. Uh, Try to not have many expectations, because fives can sense them from 2 miles away.
Hmm.
And if they do, they feel the burden already. So allow for some more space. Allow fives to control a little bit more the timing of things. Don't force a conversation without sort of agreeing to it first and saying, can we talk sometime? Can you let me know when? And also a big thing is to bring some intellectual challenges and engage in nice mental discussions and attractions or things that have to do with discussing stuff that is smart or adds information, knowledge, or interpretation of things, and engage with the five in a little bit more about their interests. and be interested in what they are interested in. I don't mean developing the same interest, but showing that you're interested. And sometimes the things fives may be interested in are sort of weird. But if you show interest for that instead of just doing, going against,
Mhm.
that is really nice. And at times, and this may sound different for most people, but it's true. For at times, when you do this most of the time, all that we said, surprise the five with something like, bring him a gift, give him or them a kiss, or kidnap them to do something, and then don't do it for too long. It's important that you don't exaggerate in that, but do it at times because it will be seen as a remarkable moment. And when you say something or do something like this, don't wait for the five to react or to say something nice or to come back to you or to thank you. There is a slow process with the five to allow all that to happen. And also, when the five is not too keen to talk, then text. That's a big bonus. Someone who is okay texting instead of talking, and so forth. There are many, many other things I could say, but go ahead. You add to the list.
You're
You've been
helping a lot
learning.
of people out there who have relationships with fives, including
Mhm.
me. Okay, yes. Don't make too many demands. Be sensitive to their sensitivity. Don't be too emotional, especially in particular moments where they may be needing time or space or might not have a lot of energy. Appreciate their sensitivity and also appreciate small things they do, right? Because a lot of times fives will show they care through small gestures or efforts. And sometimes I think if we miss them or they aren't on the scale that we would do, we can dismiss them, and that can be really hurtful. And so recognize that it might be that small effort they make, or the staying up late, or the going somewhere you really like, that they kind of may go even a little bit out of their comfort zone to do for you, and really recognize that that's a big thing and appreciate them for it. Let them have their time and space. And if they need time away from you, don't take it personally. That's a big one. But don't go away, right? Because they may give you the message that they want to be by yourself, which can make you think they don't want you around. And maybe they don't for a particular period of time, but don't get insulted such that you kind of passive aggressively act out by going away from them or rejecting them somehow. Recognize that they need their time and space, and respect that as something that is a valid need.
And one thing not many people know is that fives really appreciate being seen and acknowledged by who they are. I'm
Mhm.
not saying it's not much recognition or praise, that's not important and not even good. But it's more like, I'm observing that you are like this, and I think I'm seeing you this way that is not everybody sees.
Mm.
So five sort of expect you to see beyond the mystery that they display. Yeah.
That's bonus points, I think.
Yes.
Yeah. I would also say respect timelines and time limits. Don't stay too long. Be alert to the signs that they may be done.
Yes.
My friend used to fall asleep at a restaurant. I think you've done that too.
Yeah.
So just notice that they may be done at a certain point, and again, respect that they may have a different timing than you.
Yeah.
And also, I want to really agree with what you said around, like, show interest in things they're interested in. Connect with them on an intellectual level. Play with them in the mental space. If you have a good friend or someone you're close to and they really love sports, watch sports with them and get interested in that. You may not have an interest in that, but we can all generate some interest, and be interested in the things they know, and ask them about the things they know, and appreciate them for their knowledge and for their expertise.
Great.
Okay.
Sixes.
Sixes.
Okay, I'll start. So it's extremely important for sixes that you don't make less of them as being pessimistic or as if they are thinking of things that won't happen, or that you don't just come in saying, oh, relax, it will all be okay. So what do they expect? What would be the bonus is that you feel engaged in listening to their concerns, and also be a little bit anxious with them and validate what they're fearing or what they think may happen. At the same time, after doing all of this, sixes also really appreciate people that say quite simply, yes, and it will all go well. I'm with you. I have your back. This is a big bonus for sixes, like loyalty, displaying loyalty. And another thing is to offer especially with social sixes, but with all sixes to an extent, to offer help to carry some of the burdens that they carry. And that has to do with practical things, but also being the ones who will ask questions that are not very pleasant in the meeting, so that they are not left alone doing that. And another thing is people who can be more realistic and not only all the time optimistic. If you can do that with sixes, you will help them relax in ways that they won't need to be too pessimistic themselves. Also, if you help the six relax in different ways, like what is relaxation for that six in your life? Is it going to the beach or to nature, or is it doing a massage, or I don't know, doing a hobby? So surprise the six doing this for them or taking them to this place. Also, humor helps a lot the six. Engage with humor and have a funnier time, but not only funnier, relaxed time with sixes. And I think that a big bonus is be transparent. Make sure that you bring all the problems on the table and deal with them very clearly, and you don't have hidden agendas.
Well, you said everything I was going to say. So I won't add anything that's too much new, but I might expand on a couple of things you said, or just say it slightly differently. So I would say, first of all, respect the fear, and don't try to talk them out of it. So don't sort of criticize them for their fear or the things they do out of fear. Sort of respect it, recognize that that's happening. Listen to their concerns, as Uranio said. Be willing to hear them out. If they have something they need to talk about, listen. Sometimes just getting it out can help them feel more relaxed. Also, be there to give them reality checks. Yes, I hear your concerns, but look at what's actually happening. Help them sort of see that their fears may not play out the way they think they do without dismissing them. Also, be trustworthy, which means be consistent. Do what you say you're going to do. Be someone who holds to their word. If you tell them something, follow through. If you don't intend to do something, don't say you'll do it. Be really someone who is really upfront, saying what's true, not saying anything in any way that's false or misleading or that they can't trust or that can be a red flag. And then I will just sort of highlight what you said in terms of using humor. Sixes are often very funny. And if you use humor, that can be a way to both honor their perspective and even normalize their anxiety and be accepting around anxiety, which can calm them down. but also making something fun out of it can be something that they're actually good at doing.
Great. Sevens then.
Sevens.
So if you want to please sevens, be positive. Um, Allow for options for everything. Don't try to lock the seven into a narrow box, and make sure that both of you go for freedom, adventure. Also, make sure that you don't force the seven into hard conversations, difficult conversations, and do that a bit more indirectly at times. And start positively, finish positively, and allow the seven to take time and process later maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And don't try to apply pressure or to be authoritarian or be harsh, or because the seven not only doesn't like that but also doesn't go on with that. So what to do instead? To be very democratic, participatory, and be really willing to listen up to the seven's opinions, and making sure that you also support sevens in what they need to do, because they go to what they want to do. And if you say you need to do that, you need to do that, come back, then it doesn't work too well. If you go there and you support them, look, I'm doing this for you because I know you need it and it hasn't been so easy. So doing stuff and helping in things that are not the easiest for them. And finally, I would add offering the seven a hand and an understanding when they are facing some hard times in their lives, even though they may not be seeing that. But it's not like, let's talk about it. It's just doing something practical, not allowing them to just be the one solving the issues instead of suffering. Do that yourself. And don't talk much about all those things. Just go do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think for sevens, it's being positive, supporting them in their need to be positive, and being positive yourself, thinking of positive things they didn't think of. Also, I think being friendly and warm. I've heard sevens say this. They really appreciate people are who are kind, who are fun, have fun with them. Don't rain on their parade, right? If they're thinking of something that's going to be fun, support that. If you like, go do it with them. If you can't, celebrate the fact that they're going to do what they're going to do. I also think try as best you can not to put limitations on them, especially not necessary limitations, right? A little bit like the nines, like no unnecessary conflicts. For sevens, no unnecessary limitations. Like why would you, limit their options if there's no real need? I mean, maybe if they're your partner and there is a moment when you have to limit their options, do so with a lot of compassion and understanding if that might be hard for them. Try not to tell them what to do. Try to give them options. Be a thought partner with them and enjoy the brainstorming process or the generating possibilities process. Allow them to envision what's possible and support that activity in a positive way. And then if you do need to, have a tough conversation with them, don't make it too long, not in front of other people, mix in humor and lightness if you can, and appreciate them for their good intentions, for the way that their positivity helps people, for the way that they do make life fun, the way they do help you enjoy things. And try not to push them too much into negative emotions. Again, especially if it's not absolutely necessary. But even then, mix up the difficult with the positive, the pleasurable, if possible at all. Which oftentimes it is if you're creative. And allow them to think outside the box and appreciate that about them, appreciate their creativity and their ability to connect things in different ways and to get pleasure out of mental activity.
Right. Agreed.
Okay. So I think that's it for our desirables. So now it's time for our top 5.
And what's our top 5 today, Dee?
Today, our top 5 is the top 5 best dressers.
Okay.
The top 5 types that tend to be the best dressed.
Yes. Wow. Okay. What is your number 5?
My number 5, don't look.
No, I won't look.
My number 5 is 7.
Oh.
Just like we just were talking about.
And why is that? And how so?
Well, I wouldn't put like 7s at the top of the best dress list, but I do think that they often are kind of well put together. And I think it's a mixture of kind of wanting to be ready for anything or wanting to put their best foot forward or having kind of a positive attitude about life and wanting to be seen in a positive light. I don't know. I just was thinking about the 7s I know, and I think many of them are, can tend to look very good, very professional, like in a professional setting, those kinds of things.
Yeah.
What about you?
Well, mine, I cheated a little bit on my number 5. I have a draw between 7 and 6. I couldn't choose between the two because, I think that there are, exceptions for both types when they are not really concerned in dressing well. On one hand, 6s can be very elegant and at times a little like imponent. And then for 7s, there is a way that sometimes they dress well in being very different and relaxed. Sometimes, things that wouldn't show as being well dressed if the person has another personality. But so I couldn't really decide. I think that both can be okay, but as you said, not in the top of my list. Neither of those.
Interesting. Okay. What's your number 4?
Mine. I'm afraid it's type 2. Yeah, I because there is another type that I want to put more up, and I think that 2s dress super well. But it's just that I know a few 2s, and you're not one of them, that it's almost like they trust too much that they are okay already. Out of pride. And they don't feel the same need of dressing up as some other types do. I know several 2s who are like that. Maybe I'm biased in my sample, but I just don't think that it's as big of a concern as for a few other types in practice. And I had to fight my concepts when I came to this conclusion that 2 would be number 4 and not higher up.
Yeah. I kind of agree with you. I don't think that 2s are always the best dressed across the board. I think it kind of depends on the 2. I think maybe it might vary by subtype. I think it also could be depending on the context, for instance. Like I can think of 2s that are amazing dressers and 2s that aren't really known for the way they dress. Let's put it that way. Yeah.
Good. And what about you?
So although I mostly didn't use subtypes, I did in a couple places either use a subtype or I want to emphasize a subtype, right? Okay. So my number 4 is sexual 6.
That's true. I was going to say this when I mentioned 6.
Yes. When I was going through the types, I was thinking 6, nah, that probably wouldn't be at the top of my list. But then later I was thinking, oh, wait a minute. Like sexual 6s, like, you hear about like sexual 6 women, for instance, in the workplace, how they'll wear a power suit for effect and for really impressive effect. Think of some of the sexual 6 friends I know. And again, maybe not in everyday life, in every circumstance, but when they put any kind of effort or focus on it, wow, they can be sort of really either attractive or intimidating in the way they dress. And so I think sometimes they use dress for effect in that way, in a very big way that makes them look very good.
Interesting. I also sometimes see social 6s who dress super well, but anyway, it's not that self-dresses don't.
I think you have to say that because your wife's a social 6.
Okay. So, my number three, it's three right now, right? It's number three.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
My number three is type one.
Oh.
Because I think ones are always very correct in the way they dress, and they make sure that nothing is wrong. And at the same time, I don't have them on the very top of my list because I think that they are not always very creative in dressing in ways that can be a bit bolder or so forth. I know a few ones who are, but most ones are not. So they're more like standardized. So I think that dressing well has a component of doing something else, something unique. But that's only my concept, and I think they are way better than fives, for instance. So yeah, that's my number three. What about you?
Yeah, my number three is, and here's where I'm going to say a type, but I'm especially going to emphasize a particular subtype, and I might even be emphasizing more than that. So it's two, but especially, and here I hope I'm not perceived as being sexist here, but sexual to men.
Oh, wow.
It was the first thing that popped into my mind when we were talking about doing this. I remember that there are some sexual to men that are super sharp dressers. And what came to my mind is actually one time, an anecdote, one time when we were teaching in Thailand, and there was a sexual to guy in the group, and we gave him the assignment. I don't know if you remember this, but he was like a really sharp dresser, like amazing. And we gave him the assignment of dressing down the next day. Like he had to come dressing super casually, like not dressing well at all. And he couldn't do it. Like he came the next day and he was like 5% less dressy. It was like he had a t-shirt under his and a slightly less bold color. But it was very interesting to me. And I thought of several sexual to men that I think are particularly good dressers. Wow. That's not to put the sexual to women out of it, because I would say maybe sexual to above the rest of the twos, and I put them above myself as a self-pres two. I mean, I try to dress appropriately, but I would not say I'm one of the best dressers. And as a two, I think sometimes for me, it's a little bit like as a self-preservation two, I don't want to stand out too much, actually. But I think sexual twos, and I would say men and women, are a little bolder in that they don't mind standing out, or they even want to stand out, and they do so in a really good way.
Interesting.
I would say sexual twos, and then maybe as a special subcategory, some sexual to men.
Yeah, makes sense. So my second is three. So I think that threes many times dress well. They do the right thing, and they may many times invest in good clothes, and they value this kind of thing. Although there are several exceptions. Okay. And I just noticed the same way that you talked about sexual twos, I noticed the sexual threes are amazing in terms of that. Yeah. Maybe not as much as self-pressed three, but still they're threes, and they are really correct and so forth. And social threes, of course, like they need to be seen in a good way by everybody. Right. But I think that in general, threes pay attention to this. And they get consultancy about that. They do things that other people think of doing, but they don't go do when it comes to dressing up.
Right. Yeah. That makes sense. So my number two is four. Yeah, because I think fours are often very expressive dressers. They are almost sometimes they can look a bit artistic, in the way they dress, and often very creative or individualistic, like they're making a statement or expressing who they are, sometimes very colorful. So I think fours are often sort of good at crafting an image in the way they dress, and good at expressing themselves through their clothing.
Yeah, interesting. I think that we may have switched the two first types. So I have four as my first. And I believe, I sometimes say fashion is on point 3, while on point 4 we have, how do you say this in English, haute couture.
Hot, yes,
Yeah,
yes, yes, yes.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
like the
It's a
big,
French
big,
word,
big
so that's how
fashion.
you say the French
Yeah,
word in English.
yeah. So yeah,
Haute couture.
it's
I'm not
like
saying it right.
those models and wearing all those
Sort of
things.
higher end
Yeah, higher
fashion.
end,
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
I just can't believe how Force choose the right combinations, and they have good taste, and not only in dressing but in
Yes.
how to decorate their houses and so
Yes.
forth. It's incredible. You and I have a good type 4 friend,
Yeah.
Patrick. I'll
Yes.
name him,
Yes.
from
Yeah.
Australia.
Yeah.
Miss
Yeah.
you,
Yeah.
Patrick.
Yes.
And I
He's an
saw
excellent
him.
dresser.
Yeah, I saw him the
Yeah.
other day in Sweden when we were attending a conference,
Yes.
and then he was dressed in a particular way that he was looking brilliant, and
Mhm.
I immediately noticed, if I was dressed in the same way, it would be horrible. Like, even if I bought the very same clothes, for him it was such a good taste. So
Yeah.
I can't explain what Force do because I'm too incompetent in this
I
area.
think you need to let Patrick take you shopping.
Okay, yeah, but it's amazing. I think
Yeah.
that Force are amazing in this.
And now you have me a little afraid my 4 friends will be mad at me for not putting them in my one spot, because you make a very good argument, but I did put threes in the number one spot.
Makes sense too.
And it's funny because one of the things I thought of is one time when I was doing a team session with a team in a business. There were several threes in that team, and they had this really spirited discussion about how they got dressed every morning. And what they do in their closets and how they choose their clothes and all that goes into it. And so I definitely think that threes are, they're image oriented. They're very tuned into what looks good in terms of sort of the local consensus of what looks good in whatever culture or context they're in. And I also think they often look very professional, very put together. They often think through all the elements to sort of look like they've sort of created almost a flawless presentation. I
Yeah,
think threes can be very good at that.
I totally get your point.
But I agree with you with fours, and I think you could make an argument for either of those top two positions. And so, yeah,
This one was fun.
this was all right. So we thank you for listening. We invite you to listen or watch again next time when we get together again for our Enneagram 2.0 podcast, where we talk about all things Enneagram.